Good evening, class. We're going to spend a few minutes tonight working through Module 3. And in Module 2, we learned about uh, BMHI, Biomedical Health Informatics, learned about some of the, um, credentials that you could attain, some of the job opportunities out there. I learned a little about the history. One of the things I liked about the information that was gleaned from, the article on, BMHI was the fact that it has a lot of really good resources. So one thing that you're starting to build on is, um, you've got Errol's article, and then you've got the article by Hirsch. And so we're starting to build on some concepts, some definitions, some abbreviations, acronyms. And as we move forward, I think it'll all start to come together. And one thing I want to make sure everybody understands is this class is geared more toward health informatics, the understanding of the medical billing claims process, um, those types of activities. However, a lot of the information or a lot of the things that we discuss in health informatics can apply to any market economy or any environment that you're working in. Similar concepts, financial, analytical types of software packages you use may have a little different data sets that you're working from, and may actually not have as large, the scope of the data sets may not be as large as in healthcare, but still the same concepts. And one of the things I wanted to do tonight in this session is talk about business intelligence and talk about health informatics. I've had students in the past that get a little confused and they'll ask questions about, well, I don't understand. Health informatics sounds a lot like, business intelligence, and you're doing strategic planning and you're setting KPIs and you're working through metrics and measurements, and that is true. And so as we kind of work through, especially tonight's session or this evening's session, we're going to find that a lot of the concepts and analytical processes that you use in business intelligence, overlap and overlay with health informatics. And even if you don't go into the healthcare field, I want you to, at least from this class, get an understanding of what the healthcare environment is. You're going to go out into the workplace if you're not already in the workplace, and you're going to be presented with maybe a multitude of healthcare plans from which you can choose. And you're going to pick up some information in this class on how to help you maybe proceed and process those decisions more efficiently. Also, as you get into the real world and you start going to the doctor and start generating or start consuming some healthcare goods and services, you're going to start getting what's called an EOB. You'll hear people talking about your EOB, and it's your explanation of benefits. And you'll receive those from, I don't know, it depends on who you work for, United, Aetna, Cigna, one of the Blues plans. Let's say you stay in Tennessee and your health plans, Tennessee Blue. You're going to start getting either paper copies of your EOB or electronic versions of your EOB, or maybe even getting of their websites and looking at your historical EOBs as the way they stack on top of each other. And it becomes extremely important for you as a consumer to understand those EOBs, because there is a significant level of fraud, waste, and abuse out there in the healthcare market. Unfortunately, it is there, and the average consumer is being taking advantage of because they don't understand the concepts of fraud, waste, and abuse. And hopefully, again, if you don't go into healthcare, you're going to pick up some information as we move on through this class that will help you understand the goods and services that you've been consuming, how the provider, hospital, physician, ambulatory surgery, pharmacy, depending on what kind of service you're receiving, how those are supposed to be billed and whether you're being billed correctly. So with that in mind, we're going to start ahead. I'm going to start today with kind of on the business intelligence side of the house. And Before we get started, one thing that's going to become apparent, at least I hope it's going to become apparent as we move through this, is what you do on the business intelligence side of the house, or what you do on the healthcare informatics side of the house, can significantly impact not only the strategic planning process that an organization goes through, but could also significantly impact that profit margin. And remember, go back to your, maybe you've had an accounting class, or go back to your microeconomics classes. Accounting profit is revenue minus explicit cost. And when I say explicit cost, it's costs that generate an outlay of funds. If a company gets an invoice, they pay it by credit card, by check, by electronic transfer. I guess you could pay some services in cash, but those are explicit costs. Those are costs that you can, get your arms around, and they're easy to understand because you've had a request from a vendor, let's call them, or a supplier. You've had a request from that supplier to pay a bill, and you paid the bill. If you think about an economic profit, it's revenue minus explicit cost, so that's your accounting profit, but it also takes into account implicit cost. And so you can say economic profit is actually accounting profit minus implicit cost. In implicit cost, it's a little more difficult to get your arms around. From an economic perspective, the implicit cost is really the opportunity cost. What would be the next best option to utilize the assets that you have for a company? Let's say you're a primary care doctor. Let's say you're a pediatrician and you're in a sole practice, and you're chugging along, and you're looking at you're talking to your accountant, on a quarterly basis or monthly basis, and you're doing pretty well from an accounting profit perspective. But when you sit down and think about it, you've got X number of dollars on an accounting profit you're making being a sole provider. What if you sold your practice and went into a group practice of multiple pediatricians? What kind of profit, or what kind of, well, we'll call it profit, what kind of profit would you be receiving from that medical group in lieu of being sole practice? And it's the measurement of that profit that you could receive by moving into a multi-practice group that is truly your opportunity cost. So that's one way to look at, between explicit and implicit cost. But again, whether you're in business intelligence, working for retail, working for a restaurant, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're working for a trucking company, a lot of different, maybe you go to work for GM, and you are going to impact not only the bottom line, but you're going to impact in some way, you're going to impact that strategic planning process. And with that, we're going to, and I pulled a lot of this information just in bits and pieces from a lot of from the internet, and some of it from old textbooks I've used in the past. But one individual talks about business intelligence is an oxymoron. And I think this one came out of that Business Intelligence for Dummies that I've actually uploaded out there on Canvas. So it's a free text found on the internet, kind of a straightforward, easy to understand approach to business intelligence. And not only that, it's not going to cost you as a student, it's not going to cost you anything because it's a free textbook. And I like to, in most of my classes, if at all possible, glean free information off the internet. Either it's journal articles, it's free textbooks, and provide those to the students at no cost to the students. I know how I can remember as undergraduate, master's program, working on my PhD, textbooks were a real drain on your budget. So try to provide as many free opportunities or access to free information as possible. But in that little textbook that I've got loaded out there, he talks about, business intelligence is an oxymoron, kind of like military intelligence is an oxymoron. Business leaders don't understand big data and make decisions with gut and ignore facts and history. And I think that's a very true statement with a lot of companies. And it goes back to if you think about strategic planning and leadership classes you've taken, there is a significant differentiator between Eastern, so countries in, I'll call it the Pacific Rim, and we compare Pacific Rim to countries in Western Europe or countries in the United States and Canada. There is a real difference in the way that they view the decision process and especially history. So if you're doing business with a company in the kind of in that Eastern marketplace, you're talking about they spend a lot of time analyzing the pros and cons and the risk, and they incorporate history into it because they don't want to make mistakes that have been made in the past. Whereas on the flip side, it's a Western business concept. It's like, hey, we got to make a decision. Let's get it done. Let's get it out the door. We're not going to worry about what's in the past. We're going to we're going to tear that rearview mirror off and not look at it. We're only going to worry about the future. It actually reminds you, and I don't know how many of you listen to some of the older kind of pop rock and roll music, but it reminds you a little of that Fleetwood Mac song, don't stop. Don't stop worrying about tomorrow. And that's kind of the mentality of Western business leaders, is they aren't so much concerned about what's happened in the past as they're concerned about what's happening in the future. And a lot of businesses still operate kind of, and I'll call it, Excel analysis, spreadsheet analysis, whatever, concept or whatever nomenclature you want to use. But it's really straightforward, very simplistic. They haven't gotten into a lot of the business intelligence type software that some of the more successful companies are using. And what you're doing is if you're not analyzing the data, not analyzing the correct data, you're going to drive strategic planning, in the wrong directions, because you're going to base it on incorrect KPIs or incorrect metrics. You want to drive business insights. And the way you do that is you want data that's accurate, or you want to generate results that are accurate, valuable, timely, and actionable. You want them to be actionable to drive the enterprise or drive the decision-making process of the C-suite or the senior management team of a company. And I think this book, this Business Intelligence by Dummies, I think somewhere in there he makes a comment about his book is written for and I love the term, the non-pocket protector set. So used to, especially when I got out of graduate school, a lot of the individuals that were into computers and into the analytical aspects, every one of them without fail wore a pocket protector. Then if you've never seen a pocket protector, matter of fact, a lot of shirts may not have pockets on them anymore, but it was a plastic deal that went in your shirt pocket, and the little geeks in the back office, accounting economists, like I didn't have a pocket protector, but you always had a lot of ink pens with you. You want to have pencils and paper with you and need to take notes, but they would have the hardcore would have those plastic pocket protectors, and they'd have like 5 or 6 ink pens in there and some pencils, and some of them you'd even see they had some little folding rulers at the time, and it was kind of a weird situation. But this guy has written his text on Business Intelligence for Dummies, as he says. It's more straightforward, more middle of the road, more along the lines of staying away from the really technical jargon that you typically see in business in Business Intelligence. So that's the way he's written his book. And I think a lot of his book, it goes back to, if you think about your microeconomics, think about what are the 3 pillars, again, of economic thought. And you're going to hear me talk about this a lot in this class. 3 pillars of economic thought are opportunity cost. We've already talked about it earlier in this session when we talked about the implicit cost on economic profits. You've got self-interest, optimization. You've got decisions at the margin. And if you go back to self-interest, again, you're going to hear me talk a lot about businesses or organizations are in business for one reason and one reason only, and that's to make a profit. It's in their self-interest. They're trying to maximize revenues, they're trying to minimize costs. And if you look at both sides of the profit equation, you've got revenues. Revenues are nothing more than a function of prices and quantities, generally driven by sales. You've got costs, nothing more than prices and quantities of the factors of production that you're using to generate the goods and services that you sell. And for the most part, if you look at whether it's healthcare or any other business, if I've got a business, my cost from my suppliers to generate goods and services are actually the revenue for the supplier. So it's, the equation that the profit equation, revenues and costs are going to be just depending on whether you're on the supplier side or the purchaser side, the buyer side. And the authors actually get into, and they talk about, when they talk about decisions drive organizations, they talk about operational excellence, they talk about profit maximization, they talk about consumer employee satisfaction, and they're talking about these in both the short run and the long run. And short run success, if managed properly, turns into successful long run success. BI also, it's data about yesterday and today that drives tomorrow. And when you're looking at business intelligence, you have limited resources and unlimited decisions. So limited resources, unlimited decisions. What does that sound like? Scarcity. Talking about scarcity again, back in your microeconomics classes. So scarcity again is raising its head, even in whether you're talking about business intelligence, or we'll get into it again in health informatics. The marketplace, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to, if you're working for an organization and you're doing business intelligence work, you're trying to understand not only the general marketplace and the general environment, but you're trying to understand the industry environment. When you're talking about the general environment that you're trying to understand as you're working through your business intelligence models, they're trying to think about social aspect, laws and regulations, factors of production, prices, supply and demands of products. I mean, a lot of those fall into that general environment, whereas on the industry environment, you're thinking about competition. You're thinking, if you're in business intelligence and you're trying to provide information to a senior management team, you're trying to help them understand, what does that competitive market look like? What does that industry market look like? Because your industry market or the marketplace, it's constantly in motion, and time is your most precious resource. But when they talk about time being your most precious resource, you have an opportunity to take advantage of either opportunities or threats that the market provides just on a daily basis. And if you as an organization don't take advantage of those opportunities and threats to drive profits and expand the breadth of your market, you're going to have competitors who are going to come in and they're going to fill that void. They're going to come in and they're going to try to push you out of business. BI drives daily decisions, and they're driving daily decisions through the strategic. And again, we're going back to strategic planning, strategic management, competitive intelligence. All of those type terms are kind of your strategic decisions. And you're also talking about tactical. And it's, when you talk about tactical, you're talking about what you want to achieve as a company at any given time. So I usually think of tactical as more along the lines of operations, contracting, those types of decisions, kind of like, logistics, trying to move either goods and services from one place to another, or trying to identify opportunities through either horizontal or vertical integration to try to streamline cost and try to become more competitive in the marketplace. There is no, and again, you talk about business intelligence, and if you get out on, Wikipedia, you get out on Google, you go through textbooks, there is really no single definition that everybody agrees on with business intelligence, because mainly you're talking about insights into the future. You're looking at history, especially if you're in an Eastern culture, you're looking at history, you're looking at today's or the current data that you have, and you're trying to develop insights to try to help guide that company forward into the future. In business intelligence is any activity, tool, or process used to obtain the best information to support processes of making decisions. I don't care whether you're in the restaurant business, whether you're in retail, whether you're in automobile manufacturing, whether you're in healthcare. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to combine activities, tools, and processes and try to obtain the most accurate, actionable information that you can to help drive your company forward in the future. Remember, if you talk about data, the step of data to information, what does that do? Moving from data will take uncertainty and transform it into risk. So data and information transforms uncertainty into risk, and you can manage risk to a certain extent. So data, information, knowledge is your second step, and then insight or wisdom is kind of that fourth step setting out there. So insight, wisdom, it's the ability to help determine the future pathway of the organization with which you're working for. And one thing that business intelligence and health informatics accomplish is they bring people, information, and technology and tools into collaboration in such a way that they can develop these insights to help drive future decisions or the future pathway of an organization. And remember, on business intelligence, as you're driving these business insights, you want them to be timely, you want it to be accurate, you want to definitely be high value, and you want it to be actionable. And because technology is ever changing, your ability to accomplish these four goals when you're driving information, you have to really stay on top of it, because in technology and informational type platforms and software packages are changing at an exponential rate. Work processes and technology used to generate the information, and not only is it changing on how you generate the information, but it's actually changing on the KPIs and the metrics that you're generating. You're going to find that no matter which company you work for, as you go out over that time horizon, those KPIs may change. Again, key performance indicators, a KPI, those measures or those metrics that you manage to, and they're going to be constantly in flux because the marketplace or the industry or the particular area that you work within an overall organization is constantly changing, driven by the general environment and driven by the industry environment. And a lot of acronyms and a lot of types of, I guess, buzzwords have been developed over the years by consultants and academics and policymakers or decision makers within the government. And we've come up with, decision support system, and you'll see a DSS acronym out there, an executive information system, an EIS system, management information system, MIS. And, I think that's still the MIS may still be a phrase that you see in colleges and universities. People getting undergraduate advanced degrees in management information system. And one of the driving forces of these acronyms and these new buzzwords is, motivation among consultants and vendors. They're out there trying to sell their goods and services. And the snappier the acronym is, or the the buzzword or the phrase that they get to use when they're doing their sales pitch, it improves the probability that they may grab that business opportunity to drive their profit. You're trying to leave behind systems or buzzwords that failed. A lot of these new buzzwords and these new kind of secret sauce that all of these consultants are coming up with, a lot of it is just they're taking a process that didn't quite make it, and they've tweaked it just enough that it's turned into a new secret sauce. They've rebranded it, and now they're trying to sell it. And again, when I talk about rebranding, we're talking about rebranding older processes or older concepts that either went out of style or didn't function as they should have in the first place. And now they're tweaking them, and they're trying to rebrand them and move them into a different product line that they can sell the next individual that they go in to see. Insights, when we're talking about business intelligence and business insights, that's your ultimate destination. You're trying to develop insights about the future, a new way to look at information, a moment of clarity, a way forward to the future. All of these are terminology and concepts that you will hear if you listen to some of these podcasts with these business intelligence gurus, or you pick up the latest and greatest book to read on business intelligence. You're going to start hearing a lot of these buzzwords and these types of criteria as you move forward. If you don't meet these, and we're talking about BI's big four criteria, because if you don't meet them, then business intelligence is going to be a failure for your company. And business intelligence, big four criteria, is reflect objective reality. Whatever information you're providing and whatever KPI you're developing or metric, it's got to reflect reality. You've got to adhere to rigid standards of correctness. That's your golden rule. You want to make sure that the information is accurate, and you want it to be held to rigid standards of correctness. Accuracy is key. That's one of the real keys to criteria when it comes to developing the business intelligence or moving forward in business intelligence. And the author in the text that I've got loaded out there, he talks about GIGO. If you haven't heard of that before, it's like garbage in, garbage out. And he's referring to the accuracy of the information you're providing. If you've got flawed data coming in, no matter how great your model is, if that data is flawed coming in, then it's going to be flawed going out the door. And you're going to use that as your KPI, as your metric, as your information you're providing to your C-suite or your senior management team. And if it goes south, you might want to start looking for another job, because there's not a lot of patience when it comes to trying to provide information to a C-suite team. So the second one that you hear, and I've added it because it's one that you hear a lot in healthcare, is CICO, crap in, crap out. And healthcare is notorious for having flawed data, missing decimal points, they're transforming, numbers, misspellings, abbreviations. Healthcare may have the healthcare data sets may be the most flawed of any data sets that you'll ever work with. Data sets are huge, a lot of issues in it. Especially when you're talking about, as you're talking about patients. So you've got a patient it's William Smith. Depending on how they input the information in the system, it could be William Smith, it could be Will Smith, it could be Bill Smith, it could be Billy Smith, it could be W. Smith. And that's where healthcare starts to create issues. It's just the the breadth of the data that you have in healthcare, and you'll run into it with other market economies or other industries that have a large breadth of data. Is you have to have those standards and you have to adhere to those standards. Uh, you're talking about zip codes and allocation of results. The information you provide, might not help the senior management team develop um, their, I guess, strategic plan, but it actually can make it worse. And when you're talking about zip codes, especially if you're doing market research for a company and you're helping them develop their business intelligence plan, their marketing, let's say they're marketing new financial services. And you have to be really careful when you're setting up geographical regions, because it's a geographical region set up on the customer's zip code, or is it set up, if you've got multiple markets within your company, is it set up on your company's market zip code? I mean, things that individuals in business intelligence may not think about, but they can significantly cause issues somewhere down the road. Let's see. Oh, there is that authors do put in there that as a senior management team, if they don't trust your results, and all it takes is one bad set of results, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to ever get their trust back. And again, if you provide results that have a negative impact on that strategic planning process, or if you provide negative results that impact significantly on the profitability of the firm, it may be time for you to start looking for another job. Business intelligence results, and a lot of times they're surprising, they're counterintuitive, they can threaten groups. Functional owners will challenge unfavorable results. Over the years, I've had a lot of, especially network management, medical management staff, especially on the doctor and nurses side. If you don't, if they request information, you provide information to them, and it's not what they expect, they're going to accuse you of a lot of things, and a lot of things you can't repeat in public. But it is when you provide information to somebody that has requested it, and it surprises them, or it's just not counterintuitive to what they're expecting, you're going to get a lot of pushback. And whether it's business intelligence or healthcare informatics, you had better be thick-skinned, because if you're thin-skinned, you're not going to be there for the long haul. Errors call into question the veracity of the conclusions. Truth is something that is going to be the driver if you are successful in whether business intelligence or healthcare informatics. I had a individual work for me one time, and he was talking about, he gave me some information to look over, and I took it back to him, and I said, this can't be right. Let's look at your code. And we sat down and we started going through the code, and he had picked the wrong zip code field, and he had picked some other fields that were incorrect, and it generated, incomplete and inaccurate information. And I said, well, let's get in there and we'll change the coding, and we've got to have this correct because it's going up to the chief actuary. And you know what he told me? He said, well, it's ACAP. I looked at him kind of funny. He said, yeah, it's as close as possible. And he said, that should be good enough. And it's not, that's a kind of attitude as a individual, as an analyst working in business intelligence or an analyst working in healthcare informatics. That's a kind of attitude that just will not work. You want to produce accurate results. You want to protect the reputation among the skeptics. Without accuracy, insights are worse than worthless. So if they're accurate, they are worse than worthless. If you harm the company, nobody will ever trust business intelligence again. You want the insights to be valuable insights, information with a material impact on the organization. You want to significantly reduce costs. Do you want to, significantly increase revenue? You want to improve operational efficiency. You want to enhance sales. Other positive factors. Think about customer satisfaction. Those are the kind of valuable insights that you want to be able to provide information in KPIs and metrics to help the company move forward, and especially in the future. Business intelligence insights aren't always obvious, but impacts can be huge. High value insights usually aren't easily deduced. And that's true. The high value insights, the really valuable high value insights, sometimes it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of rework on your models that you're putting together. Knowledge goes to wisdom. Remember, data to information, information to knowledge, knowledge to wisdom. And I found over the years, especially with coders do a good job writing code, but coders have typically have two issues. They typically don't either understand the underlying data, or they don't want to understand the underlying data. And the second issue with coders is they hate to do analytical work. They want to take the request, they want to write the code, they want to put out the information of the reports and go on to the next one. They're almost like you think about, the economics that talk about widgets. They're like widget makers. They look at operational volume, piecemeal type work. To be a really good analyst, whether it's in business intelligence or it's healthcare informatics, you want to be able to understand the underlying data. That's key. You want to either be able to write the code or be able to sit down with somebody that can write the code for you, take the results and sit down and make sure the results make sense, and then take those results and turn them into actionable information. You want to also have on-time information. And it's the spirit, I guess the authors talk about the spirit of the staircase, and that's where they talk about it. It happens a lot. You're in a confrontational meeting with somebody, and the meeting doesn't go well, and you walk out the door, and as you're walking down the staircase, you think, if I had just said this, I would have come out of that meeting in great shape. And that's what's on-time information. That's what they're talking about. The best comeback for a heated argument is as you're walking down the staircase. And that's what they're talking about, the spirit of the staircase. But in effective debates, you want to have sound information, and you want to price the time when it's needed. So that's timely delivery. And that's what you're talking about when they're talking about business intelligence. If you have a report that is due out the door on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock, you want that report done preferably Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock. That gives you Thursday to review the report, and it gives you Friday, if you need to rerun the data. You don't want to provide information to a senior level manager or vice president of the company, the day after they need the information. That's it. It has to be timely information, and it has to be information that's up to date. You don't want to be running last year's data and trying to transform last year's data. When I'm saying last year's, I'm talking about January of 2023 data, and trying to transform that into and use it as a proxy for January of 2024 data. The underlying data has to be, not only the underlying data has to be timely, but the timeliness of your information to the requester has to be timely. Information delays. And we've all run into these information delays on time, from time and, almost every report that you go to work with, there's some kind of a delay that comes up and bites you. You've got technology issues. You've got workflow and logistics, format, translation of the results, internal resources, you're absent, no cross training. And that's one of the things, what's one of the biggest drawbacks, other than just technology issues. One of the biggest drawbacks is you don't have, if you don't have a team that's cross-trained, or there's like at least one other individual in a company that can do the same job that maybe you can, it's going to be really difficult if you have to call in sick, or you have to go somewhere. You just, let's say you decide you want to go on vacation, makes things really difficult. And again, when we're talking about timeliness, we want up to the minute information. You want analysis and reports to the decision makers in order for them to consider all options. And a lot of analysts don't understand the concept, especially in business intelligence, is the best thing you can do is generate the information and provide some options to the requester of the report. Let's say you've got 3 options that you provide, the best one, the next best one, and probably the least favorable. And take those 3 options and assign probabilities to them. We've got 50% chance of hitting the best one. We've got another 40% chance of, that we're going to come in with, the second best, and about a 10% chance we're going to end up this third option. And, we don't really want this third option. We're going to bank on those, 90% chance of hitting those first 2. So give them some options to consider. And when you're talking about timely information, think about stock traders, think about, futures traders or options traders, people trading on the financial markets. They have timely, up-to-date information, and they live on that. They have to have that up-to-date information. And then lastly, you want actionable conclusions. The biggest weakness in decision support tools, and it's the biggest, built-in conclusion that aren't actionable. So you have some, and it's a huge weakness on some of these business support tools. You don't have it doesn't generate an actionable result. It doesn't matter that they have a result, but if it's not going, if it can't be actionable and drive future, especially profits, and help in that strategic planning process, what good is a KPI or metric if it's not actionable? You've got feasible course that takes advantage of a situation, or to move from conclusion to action. And that's what we're talking about, actionable. You want to be able to grab that information and move from the conclusion that information generates. You want to be able to move to action. And you also want to take care of it and, take advantage of, and I mentioned earlier, opportunities and threats. Executives and companies are constantly looking at the, again, external environment or the general environment, and they're looking at the industry environment. And they are looking at those, trying to identify opportunities and threats, and they need the information to act on those opportunities and threats in a timely manner. The BI value proposition, it links information with action, and it promotes good decision-making habits. And there's actually, in a lot of the business intelligence processes, you've got what they call kind of a loop, and I'll call it the business intelligence loop. You gather the data, you make the decisions and take actions, you measure the results, with your KPIs and your metrics that you develop. You get your lessons learned from, one decision to the next, and then you start the loop again. And it's that lessons learned that's going to really drive what happens when you start that loop and go back and start going back through the data. One of there's a great chart in that first chapter of that text, and it talks about advances that are driving business intelligence. It's computer power, it's increases in computer power, it's increases in data storage, increases in computational analytics, reporting process, networking of technologies. Think of all of the opportunities that have happened over the last few years when it comes to the environment that we're working in, when we're talking about business intelligence. And let's see, what else they talked about? Data collection. And you're talking about on data collection, is it most companies, and just think about the local restaurant. So you go into your local restaurant, you order your meal. The waiter goes and either keys it into the system. They've got that little handheld deal, and they're standing there at the table keying it in as playing around, and that's going to drive what's called point of sale transactional data. Um, it's gone from cash register, used to be old fashioned cash register, to computer systems, to accounting systems. So it's feeding. It's gone from, you can go directly into your accounting system, and it's good for day-to-day type of activity, but it may not the best type of system on the transactional data for the business intelligence process, because there it's the communication weakness between the transactional data system and the business intelligence process. And that's where they started coming up with these decision support software packages. Business intelligence has different meanings across different companies, and it does. Executives need information to understand general environment and the competitive environment of the industry environment. And that's one of your drivers of these decision support software packages that consultants and vendors are selling out there now. And you even see it now advertised on the internet. You buy this, decision support process or this decision support software package. Business intelligence is truly a flexible organization or organism. It origins in various business units and functional areas. Analytics moved to the desktop, so you've gone from kind of the pencil and paper, spreadsheets on a legal size paper. You've gone to the desktop, and you've kind of worked your way through. I think when I was in graduate school, it was Lotus Notes, and then it went to it was a Lotus product. I can't really call it Lotus Notes anyway, but it was a spreadsheet type product, and it moved to Microsoft Excel. And there's a lot that you can do in Excel when it comes to desktop analytics, but now it's gone to just the full blown. You can do Alteryx, you can do Cognos, you can get business objects, you can even do SAS. It used to be you could only do SAS on the mainframe, but now you can get in on your desktop and do SAS. And so it's business intelligence. It's been flexible over time because it's following the data. It's the demand on business intelligence that's driving this. I'll call it an explosion, driving this explosion in technology that you're seeing from the desktop. Business intelligence is actually, it has a split personality because it's straddling that line between, business and technology. Business intelligence is built on, massive computing power. Successful BI is driven by the company culture. So it depends on the company culture as to how much, depending on what the budget is for BI and the importance that the company assigns to BI. You can usually tell from a company's, culture from, you start looking at the mission and the vision and the culture and the goals that the company has, and you can get a quick feel on, depending on what that information tells you, as to how important that company feels that business intelligence or the business intelligence process is. The commitment to BI. Business managers must adopt a rational, measurement-based approach for strategy and operations. That's pretty much a given, and it's really common sense. But I'm not sure a lot of companies actually think about that. So you've got the business managers who are going to be driving the adoption and the incorporation of the integration of the business intelligence process into the daily strategic planning process. IT must be prepared to support the push of BI at all levels of the company. And to me, that's one of the, it is. To me, that's one of the weak links in a lot of companies, as they don't have the bandwidth. They don't have the IT process. They don't have the IT infrastructure to help push business intelligence across the company. And if you look at BI from the people perspective, business intelligence provides people with new tools and perspectives. It gives, it says again, we're talking about a flexible organism. It's giving individuals working in the company, it's giving them a new perspective on how they impact their company's goals and decisions. The decision makers can ponder the what if, what if I did this or what if I did that? Decision makers must be able to use the right tools and they must ask the right questions. And to me, that is the key to it. It's I don't say fairly easy, but it is somewhat easy to identify a lot of very effective business intelligence tools to use, but a lot of your key decision makers don't know the right questions to ask. And it's a lot of companies, the downfall of the business intelligence is not so much the infrastructure or lack thereof, it's those individuals don't have the knowledge or the background to ask those questions or ask the correct questions. And again, business intelligence straddles the world between business and technology. It's an art and it's a science. No set formula to determine the right report. Success varies across companies and industries. And it doesn't matter where you're getting this information. Again, I've gotten some from textbooks, I've gotten some from the internet. There is still this lack of understanding to somewhat on the side of business intelligence as to the importance in the successful nature or the profitability of a lot of companies. For BI to be successful, you have to put the right people in place. BI must be spread across the company by the leadership. Business intelligence, it's one of those activities that has to be pushed from the top down. Must be a commitment to a rational approach in making decisions, supported by all levels of IT and the business executive. IT and the business executives have to be joined at the hip to get business intelligence to work. The last thing that I'm going to leave you with is just business intelligence might not be for everyone, but companies improve by adding rigor to strategic management and business decisions. That's the key. The insights, the viability of the future, that's where business intelligence is going to drive a company. And with that, we're going to stop on business intelligence and we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and we'll talk about healthcare informatics.